In this example, we're going to determine the domain of this function. So we have g of x equals, and we have a square root involved here, so it's 3 minus 5x under that radical, and then minus 2. If you'd like to try to find this domain first, go ahead and pause the video and do so, and then come on back and we'll work it together. Okay, so when we have a radical expression, so the first thing we need to do is see if it's an even index, and of course it's the square root, so this index is even. And we know when there's an even index, the radicand, or the expression under the radical, cannot be negative because that will ultimately yield an imaginary number which we cannot plot on the real number line. So this 3 minus 5x, that's our radicand, must be greater than or equal to 0. In other words, it has to be non-negative. And this negative 2 outside here is of no consequence when it comes to the domain because the negative 2 is just a vertical translation of the graph and it's down 2 units. So no bearing on its domain. Okay, so let's go ahead now and solve this inequality. So we'll start by subtracting 3 from both sides. So we'll have negative 5x is greater than or equal to negative 3. And when we divide both sides then by negative 5, our x will be isolated on that side, but since we divided by a negative, we need to flip the sign of the inequality, and these two negatives cancel, so 3/5. So what we have here for our domain is all x values as long as x is less than or equal to 3/5. So let's go ahead and write this a couple of ways. So we'll start by writing it in set builder notation. So we'll say it's the set of all x's. And you could include here that x must be a real number, but this part's kind of optional, such that x is less than or equal to 3/5. Okay, so that'll be set builder notation. We could also write it in interval notation. And so since it's less than 3/5, that means we're starting at negative infinity, and infinities always get parentheses, and we're going to work our way up to 3/5. We include 3/5, but definitely nothing bigger than 3/5. So here's what this domain will look like in set builder notation, and here's what it will look like in interval notation when we take that radicand expression 3 minus 5x and set him greater than or equal to 0.